Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Tuesday. We are back with the latest Everton news and rumours. We're going to talk about Leicester City forward Patson Daka. Today, apparently Everton are interested in a move to bring him to the football club. We're also going to talk about Manchester United defender Harry Maguire, because whilst there's a lot of talk at the moment that West Ham United are the most likely destination for Harry Maguire, Everton's name is continually popping up when talking about the England international. So we're going to talk about him, and we're also going to talk about Southampton winger Kamaldeen Sulemana, who has been once again linked with a move to Everton. Obviously heavily linked with a move to Everton in January, ended up going to Southampton instead, and similar to Arnold Danjuma, is probably now looking at things and thinking, do you know what, maybe I wouldn't have minded the move there to Everton, and Everton seemingly are ready to rekindle their interest in the wide player, who of course was relegated to the Championship with Southampton. So we're going to get into everything in today's live stream, everything that we have missed over the last 24 hours or so. No new update regarding Youssef Chermiti. I guess we are now in that position of waiting for the deal to be completed. It doesn't seem like there's anything that is holding the deal up. Reports suggesting today that he is in the United Kingdom. He has had his first part of his medical yesterday, and according to the BBC, his second part of his medical was due today, and Everton are looking to officially announce him as a new player before the end of the week. So hopefully we get that announcement over the next couple of days or so. I said it yesterday, it would be perfect to get that announced before the game on Saturday. Whether or not he will have any involvement in the game on Saturday is a completely different question, but it would be nice to get him announced and give us all something to look forward to, and give us all something to be a little bit excited about going in to the opening game of the Premier League season. Discussing the opening game of the Premier League season whilst we're on it, and before I forget, we will be doing our season preview to the 2023-2024 Premier League season. I've done that many season previews and season reviews, but season previews that when it comes to remembering the actual year of the league, it all sort of mangles into one. But we will be doing that live stream tomorrow evening. We're going to talk about Everton's pre-season. We're going to talk about Everton's transfer business so far, our expectations for the season, where I think Everton should be aiming to finish, and how I think the season will go under Sean Dyche. So that will be live tomorrow evening around about the same time probably, so don't forget to look out for that one. And before we get into any of the transfer news, don't forget to go and check out the top link in the description, vintagefootballshirts.com, to have a look at all of the vintage Everton gear on there. As you can see, shorts, some tops there from the 80s, jackets from the early 90s as well, all the way up until recent years. Of course, you can see there some of the last couple of years worth of kits and training gear, and even some of the under 23 sponsored kits there with the different sponsor on, as you can see, as opposed to Kazoo. So don't forget to go and check out the top line of the description, vintagefootballshirts.co.uk, if you're looking to purchase any vintage Everton shirts or any other bits of stuff, jackets, training gear, etc, etc. Big thanks to them for partnering with us as always. So let's get straight into it then, without further ado. There's no point in wasting any more time. Everton have today been linked with another Leicester City forward, this time Patson Daka. Alan Myers reported that Everton are interested in signing Leicester City forward Patson Daka, and then we heard from the Mail that Everton have asked about Southampton striker Che Adams and want Leicester City striker Patson Daka on loan. Leicester would prefer a permanent deal. I'm sure Leicester would prefer a permanent deal, because it would mean they would be getting some money for Patson Daka as opposed to allowing him to leave on a free. Let's have a little look at his career stats. He, of course, course, is a forward player, can play on the right, can play on the left, can play behind the striker, but has, for the majority of his career, played as a centre-forward. And when I say can play on the right, can play on the left, he's played 3 games on the left in his career and 7 games on the right, whereas he's played 172 games as a centre-forward. So he is a centre-forward. He has played a total of 228 games, 91 goals and 41 assists. So not the worst record of any of the players that we've been linked to. I'm just having a little look at his recent years here, and it's quite evident that his best season was in the Austrian Bundesliga, I believe, with Red Bull Salzburg, in which he played 28 games, scored 27 goals, and got 7 assists, and that was in 2020-2021. He obviously, off the back of that, moved to Leicester, got a move to Leicester, and it was a move at the time that I remember looking at, thinking that's some move for them. He is a fantastic player. He just come off the back of scoring 27 goals in 28 games, but since his move to Leicester, he hasn't quite hit the ground running. The season before last, he played 23 Premier League games, scored 5 goals and registered 3 assists. And last season, he played 30 games, scoring 4 goals and registering 4 assists. He didn't get on the pitch in Leicester City's opening game of the Championship season at the weekend, meaning that he obviously hasn't kicked the ball so far this season. But as I said, for somebody that was so good in that final season at Red Bull Salzburg, 27 goals in 28 games with 7 assists is a fantastic return by any sense of the imagination for any professional footballer. He got his move to Leicester, and I suppose that's where the big question was asked, will you be able to translate that into the Premier League? And the facts will show you that he has not been able to do that. 23 games, 5 goals, 3 assists in the season before last, and 30 games, 4 goals and 4 assists last season. He's obviously played some cup games, FA Cup games, EFL games, and got the odd goal here and there, got the odd goal in the Conference League for Leicester the season before last as well. But again, it just hasn't worked for him at Leicester City. His whole record as a centre forward is 172 games, 83 goals and 33 assists. He is only 24 years old, which is obviously something to mention, because it's not like he's 26, 27, 28. He still is 24 years old, relatively good stage of his career, but there's absolutely no there's no doubting, there's no questioning the fact that it just hasn't worked out for him at Leicester City. Now, the big question is well, if it didn't work out at Leicester, who were a Premier League side, and were a side that needed goals, and were a side that needed them to get, hit the ground running, then why would it work out at Everton? A team that are very much in the same position as what Leicester were in when they brought him to the football club. And I suppose logic and fact will tell you that it's unlikely to work out for Everton. However, there is definitely a circumstantial sort of part of this that we might not know about. It mightn't have worked for him at Leicester City because the style mightn't have been suited to him. The way in which Leicester City played mightn't have been suited to him. I'd really like to see, out of how many of those 30 appearances in the Premier League last season, how many of them were substitute appearances off the bench in the last 5-10 minutes of the game. I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me in the comments, or in the live comments if you're watching live. Because on the website that I was looking at, it just states that he appeared 30 times in the Premier League. Now that could be he played 30 times for 90 minutes and only scored 4 goals, which would be a really, really poor return. Or it might be that he only started 4 games, he scored 4 goals, but the other 26 appearances, he come off the bench for 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the game and he wasn't really massively involved. So, again, it would be really, really interesting to see how many of those appearances were substitute appearances and how many of those games he started. He obviously started more than 4 games. By the way, I'm not saying that he only started 4 games. But, there's no shying away from the fact that it hasn't worked for him at Leicester City. I'm sure he will be open to a move away from there for that reason. You know, the fact that it hasn't worked, the fact that he's been there for a couple of seasons now and he hasn't really been able to hit the ground running, but also the fact that he probably sees himself as somebody that could be playing in the Premier League, or certainly could be playing in one of the top leagues across Europe, if not the Premier League, maybe the Italian league or the German league. Doing that well in Austria for Salzburg. Quite often players go from the Austrian first division, teams like Salzburg, etc., into the German league, or the Spanish league, etc., etc. So he probably fancies himself a move. As for Everton's point of view on this, I think it all depends on what deal Leicester City are willing to accept and what deal Everton are looking for. If Leicester City are going to turn around and say, well, we want £20 million for Patson Daka because of how much we paid for him and because of the fact that we know you're desperate for the centre forward, then I think Everton should be steering far away from this, because I don't think Patson Daka is worth £20 million, and I think there's other players out there that Everton could spend that money on that would be more of a guarantee. And I say more of a guarantee because nothing is a guarantee in football, but that would be more of a guarantee to come in and improve this team quickly. However, a lot of the reports that we're seeing at the moment, certainly the report from the Mail that we've just spoken about, is stating that Everton are wanting to bring him in on loan. And whilst Leicester City would prefer a permanent deal, it doesn't strictly state that Leicester City would not be open to a loan move. And if Everton can get Patson Daka on loan, I don't think that would be the worst signing in the world. I don't know. Now, look, obviously, there is other names that are being floating about the the atmosphere at the moment in regards to the players linked with Everton. Connor says 13 of his appearances were starts last season. So 13 starts, 4 goals, 4 assists. Still not great, but, it's near enough 1 in 3. Which is better than what we've got now in Neil Maupay. Everton obviously have been linked with a plethora of what you might call unwanted Premier League or ex-Premier League forwards this window. Whether it be Che Adams, whether it be Michail Antonio, whether it be Patson Daka, whether it be Kelechi Iheanacho, whether it be Jamie Vardy. Everton have been linked with pretty much every sort of unwanted Premier League forward, or unwanted forward from a Premier League side that have now dropped into the Championship, namely Leicester City. And out of the entire list, there will definitely be shouts for Che Adams as the best option because of his size, because of his physical presence, because he's probably most like Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the sense of being able to occupy a defender and use his body and use his weight to his advantage. There'll be shouts for Patson Daka because of his pace, because of his speed, because of his ability on the ball, and of course because of his career before Leicester City. He was fantastic over in Austria. There'll be shouts for Iheanacho because, again, goal scoring wise, he's had a relatively decent record in terms of minutes to goals. There'll be shouts for Antonio. So I do feel like Everton will end up with one of these players. I know we've been linked with Boulaye Dia as well, and a couple of other names from across Europe, but I just don't see Everton going out and spending £20 million on a centre forward that is coming in from from a European league, whether it be Germany, France, Italy, when we've just spent near enough that money on a young lad who's going to come in. I think they'll probably be looking at it now thinking, right, okay, we need to pair Youssef Chermiti with an experienced Premier League forward who can come in and who, is more than capable of scoring goals. Now, all of the players that Everton have been linked with are forwards that have registered around about 4 or 5 goals in the Premier League, over the last couple of seasons or so. Michail Antonio, I think, got 5 or something last season, and although, his previous seasons he'd scored 10 plus, but last season it was 5. I think Che Adams was 4 or 5. Patson Daka, as we've just mentioned, last season got 4 goals. Obviously, Iheanacho, I think, was around about the same as well. So we seem to be linked with players that have got Premier League experience and have played at least a couple of seasons in the Premier League and have been able to score at least 4 or 5 goals in the league. Now, for me, that's not ideal. I want Everton to be linked with somebody that we can look at and think, yeah, in the right team, with the right system, he'll get you 10 goals plus. Because the reality is we have to assume, and as negative as this might sound, and as unfair as this might be, we have to assume that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is going to spend the majority of this season injured. We do. Because that is what has been the case for the last 2 seasons. So we can't sit here and say, well, we've got Dom. Dom's back. We've got Dom. Dom's coming back. Because we were in this exact same position 12 months ago. Well, we've got Dom. Dom played against Kiev. He looked good. He's coming back, etc., etc. We'll be all right. 25 minutes into the Premier League season, if that, it might have even been before the Chelsea game, Dominic Calvert-Lewin picks up an injury and he's going to be out for a number of months. And then we don't see him at all for the season. We see him for 5 games, 6 games in the whole of the season. So we have to assume that that is going to be the case again this season. And if Dominic Calvert-Lewin remains fit and stays fit for 30-odd games in the season, then great. It's an added bonus. It's something that we weren't expecting. It's something that we weren't relying on, but it's happened. Brilliant. But they're the 2 big words. We cannot expect and we cannot rely on Dominic Calvert-Lewin being fit. So therefore, we need a striker that is going to come in and be able to bring what Dom would bring if he was available for those games. Now, Everton might be looking at it thinking, well, a 10-goal-a-season striker, somebody that you look at and you think, okay, you're guaranteed to hit 10-plus figures, they're not going to come to Everton. They're too much money. They're already at sides like Brighton or Villa or Brentford, etc., etc. They're not coming to Everton. So Everton might be looking at it going, if we can get a unwanted, and I say that because I think that everybody that we've been linked with have been players that are actively trying to get a move away from their football club. If we can get an unwanted striker that can come in and score 4 or 5 goals at least, and then we compare that with Youssef Chermiti on the hope that he comes in and scores 4 or 5 goals if he gets enough game time, then we'll have obviously covered those 10 plus goals that we're looking for. That's a risk because there's no guarantee Youssef Chermiti is going to come in and even score 1 Premier League goal. He's incredibly young, he's incredibly inexperienced, he looks good and he's got potential and he's definitely got the attributes to be a good centre forward and the potential to be a good centre forward, but at this moment he's far, far too young to be able to judge that. So it's a risk to sort of have him in the thinking. Again, for me, ideally, Youssef Chermiti's return this season wouldn't even be a matter of discussion. It would be, well, we're going to throw him in. If he gets us 4 goals, 5 goals, 10 goals, brilliant, but we're not relying on that. Whereas I fear that Everton might be relying on that a little bit. They mightn't be relying on him to score 20 plus, but they might be relying on him to score 5 plus. And, that's not easy in the Premier League for a young kid who's played very, very little professional football. So that might be the reason why we're looking at these sort of, as I said, unwanted strikers as options to come in. Out of them all, I do think Patson Daka is a decent option because I still think there's a player there. 24 years old, very quick, pacey, can get down the wings, can take a player on. And as I said, anybody that puts 27 goals in the back of the net in 27 games, even though it is obviously a league that cannot be compared to the Premier League in terms of its qualities, it's still a fairly impressive record. That and Erling Haaland, and I'm not comparing him to Erling Haaland, by the way, but Erling Haaland was obviously signed for Dortmund on the back of a couple of really good seasons over in Austria, and again, he went to Dortmund, he done the business there, and now he's gone to City and he's doing the business there. So I'm not comparing him, but what I'm saying is, it's a good platform to build from. He got that platform, he got his move to the Premier League, and he hasn't been able to do it. Is that because he's just not good enough? Maybe. Maybe. It could also be because it just wasn't right for him at Leicester. He didn't settle. He didn't have a great relationship with the manager. The manager was constantly chopping and changing the forward, so he didn't play as much as maybe he would have wanted to. maybe if he gets a move elsewhere, comes to Everton, he can get a good run in the team, a good run at, up front, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 games, starting and playing the majority of those games. Maybe he'll find his feet a little bit more. Maybe he'll find his confidence a little bit more. Maybe he'll find his shooting boots. He's proven that he can score goals. He's proven that he's got the ability to do that. And as I said, on loan, I think this would be a pretty good deal for Everton. If we could get him on loan, then I don't really see what the negative is. He's not costing us anything. I can't imagine his wages to be particularly high. And he's somebody that is worth a shot. Now, obviously, if he's going to cost us 15, 20 million, which I've seen some reports floating around on social media, then that becomes a completely different question then. But, again, he is in that bracket of Premier League experience centre forward that has not really done very well in the last couple of years, but at some point in the past has done well. It's the same with Antonio. Antonio 3 seasons ago scored 10 plus goals 3 years on the bounce. Great. But last season he scored 4 or 5 goals. So now Everton are being linked with him. Che Adams, before he moved to Southampton, absolutely brilliant, electric, the type of player you'd want Everton to go and sign. He moved to Southampton, he's not being great. Everton are now linked with him. Patson Daka, prior to Leicester City, brilliant, explosive. If we'd have signed him before he went to Leicester, we'd all be buzzing about it. Went to Leicester, not really done it in the Premier League, struggled, now we're linked with him. So every player we're having the same conversation about, and that's, yeah, he's got potential, he's definitely got ability, but he's not shown it in the last couple of years, and in the last couple of years he's been playing in the Premier League, and we need him to show it in the Premier League. So is it a case of he's just not good enough, and we're going to sign him, and we're all going to say, well, we knew he wasn't good enough because he hasn't been good enough for the last 2 years? Or is it a case of he needs a fresh start, he needs a new manager, he needs some confidence, he needs a run in the team? We don't know. But if he is available on loan, and that frees us up to go and spend that money on a Nonso who we've been linked with, or somebody else that can come in those forward areas as well, then I'm not massively opposed to Patson Daka. I don't think Che Adams or Iheanacho or any of the other names, and look, we could sit here and talk about Boulaye Dia, we can sit here and talk about a couple of other names from European countries, but I said this we done a video last week talking about which striker Everton should sign, and I said I think Everton should sign Boulaye Dia, but I also said in that video I think Boulaye Dia is the least likely to sign, because it's very clear at the moment that Everton's targets are players with Premier League experience, and are players that have at least had a season or two under their belt playing in this country, and Boulaye Dia hasn't had that, so I just didn't feel like he would come in. So that leaves us with a lot of players that are record-wise very similar, in terms of they haven't been particularly great in recent years, but there might be a player there to unlock, and if you can unlock that player, confidence, give him a run in the team, then he could be a good signing. Ultimately, we'll wait and see on this one. As it stands, Sky are reporting that Everton are interested in him. And I'm sure Everton are interested in a number of players, so this mightn't go anything further than that. But he's definitely an interesting one to discuss, because I do get the feeling that Patson Daka is somebody that fans would probably prefer over a Che Adams or an Iheanacho or somebody like that, because of his age for a start, and because, okay, he hasn't been great for Leicester, and he hasn't had a particularly good couple of seasons, but he was massively highly rated before that move, and had a really, really good season before that move. So, ultimately, look, we'll wait and see whether or not this one happens or goes any further than the interest. We'll wait and see. But I thought it was definitely one worth talking about. Everton have also been linked with Southampton winger Kamaldeen Sulemana, according to Fraser Fletcher. Everton remain in negotiations with Southampton over a potential loan deal for winger Kamaldeen Sulemana. That was last night. We have also heard today that Everton are looking to rekindle their interest in Southampton winger Kamaldeen Sulemana on a loan deal, and that is according to Shamoon Hafiz of the BBC. There has been a couple of rumours over the last sort of week or so regarding Sulemana. There was a few rumours, I think it was last week when I was ill, and we didn't discuss them because ultimately I had a few days off because I was ill, and then when I come back it all quietened down. Obviously, somebody that Everton were linked with in January, somebody that Everton were heavily linked with in January, somebody that Everton were pursuing and were trying to get a deal done for, chose to go to Southampton, or ultimately they presented a better package, whether that be more money, whether that be an opportunity to leave if they were to go down, and Everton didn't present that. I don't know what Southampton offered that Everton didn't, but he ultimately chose to go there instead. Maybe it was the fee, maybe it was nothing to do with the player, maybe it was to do with the transfer fee. And now Everton seemingly are interested in bringing him into the football club on loan. Again, he was obviously bought by Southampton in January, and if Everton were to bring him in on loan this summer, he wouldn't cost us anything. He's 21 years old. Obviously it hasn't been there very long. I watched him a couple of times towards the back end of last season, and I thought he was okay. He played 18 games, scored 2 goals, and got one assist for Southampton. Obviously, he joined in January. Before that, he'd had 14 games for Stade Rennes and scored 1 goal. So 109 appearances, 22 goals, and 14 assists. Predominantly plays off the left, has played as a centre forward, has played on the right, but predominantly plays off the left, which seems to be Everton's chosen position for players, doesn't it? Bringing in left forwards instead of right forwards when we haven't had a right forward for about 10 years. But there you go. Again, the way in which this football club works truly baffles me. Didn't set the world alight when he was at Southampton towards the back end of last season. Granted, he was going into a very difficult position, a club in a very difficult position, and a club who were struggling massively. He definitely is somebody that is exciting. I think he scored a couple of goals against Liverpool in the final game of the season, and looked very, very exciting in that game. And I remember watching him thinking he will not be there at the start of next season. Again, if it's a deal Everton can do for a loan move for a season, then I don't see what the big negatives to this are. We've all known we've needed another winger. I think we will need another 2 wingers, because I think that Demarai Gray will end up leaving the football club. There's still a lot of talk about Wilfred Gnonto, and Everton's still trying to pursue a move for him behind the scenes. Whether or not that comes of anything, we'll wait and see. Again, can I see him wanting to stay in the Championship for the season? Probably not. They had a difficult game the other day, and they weren't particularly great in that game. He looked alive and explosive, but Leeds themselves didn't look particularly great. So, will he try and force a move? Maybe. But Sulemana coming in on loan, again, as I said, definitely one with potential, and definitely one with the ability to shine. 21 years old, obviously, so still very, very young, and only been in the country for less than a season, less than a year. So, again, somebody that Everton would be taking a risk on, in the sense of there's nothing to suggest he'd be able to come in and do what we needed him to do. But for a loan move for the season, I don't see what would be wrong with this. We obviously have been linked with him in the summer, and in January, and I don't think it's a bad thing that Everton are revisiting targets that they missed out on in January, because what it shows is some people have of mistaking this for desperation. Oh, Everton are going back and getting Danjuma after he turned them down. Oh, Everton are going back and getting Sulemana after he turned them down. They're desperate, they're this, they're that, they're the other. For me, it doesn't show that at all. What it shows is a level of planning. Dare I use that word, plan, in the same sentence as Everton Football Club? Because what it shows is that Everton have had a target. They've missed out on said target, but they've been savvy enough to look at it and go, well, do you know what? This player might come up again in 6 months because it mightn't work where he's just gone, or he mightn't have moved anywhere, and Everton might look at it and go, do you know what? We're going to go and try and approach him again in the next window. So I've got no problem with Everton revisiting old targets as long as they're the right sort of profile of player, and I think Sulemana is the right profile of player. Young, explosive, potential, goal scoring, obviously raw and needs working on, and definitely needs coaching and improving, but has got the raw talent and the raw potential to be a really good forward. So if we can go and get him on loan, then I don't really see why that is a bad thing. I don't. And TJ says loan players don't do well at Everton. Well, I would argue that, mate, to be honest. Romelu Lukaku coming on loan at first, Stephen Pienaar, Mikel Arteta. You know, there's various players over the years that have come in on a loan move and ended up doing that well that they were bought on a permanent deal the following summer. Now, okay, when they're bought on a permanent deal, Andre Gomez, etc., they mightn't be great, but I would, I would argue that point maybe in recent years, because I think we've wrongly used the loan system, bringing in players like Vinagre and Stevie who just haven't worked. But I think bringing in Sulemana on loan, I think bringing in Danjuma on loan is the right way to use the loan system. And I think it could. And if you use the loan system in the right way, it could work brilliantly. It could. And again, very little risk bringing a player in for no transfer fee who will again be on he might be on a better wage because obviously of all of the negotiation in January, but probably not a wage that you look at and go, wow, that's far too much. Probably on a affordable wage for the position that we're in, I mean. So yeah, if we can get this deal done, then I wouldn't be too opposed to it. Do I think we would still need another winger? I would like us to go out and buy somebody. You know, even if Sulemana does come in on loan, I'd still like us to go out and spend that money that we're going to get in for Gray and for various other deals on a sort of explosive starting winger that we all look at and go, ooh, whether that be Willie Nonso or somebody else that we look at and go, right, okay, he's our big transfer of the summer, because we still haven't had one of them yet. We still haven't had that player that you look at and go, right, he's the marquee signing. Even when Youssef Chermiti signs, he won't be that. So, yeah, again, I would be open to this 150%. If it was similar with Daka, if they're going to want 50 million for him and they're not interested in a loan, then no. But by all accounts, Southampton are more than interested in loaning him out, and I think that could be a good move for Everton. So we'll wait and see how that one progresses over the next couple of days or so. Moving on now, according to Miguel Delaney, Everton are monitoring Manchester United defender Harry Maguire. Everton are aiming to make a move for Harry Maguire. West Ham have recently had a bid rejected. We then read earlier on today that, according to the BBC, Everton's reported interest in Harry Maguire is wide off the mark due to the significant cost involved. But then, according to Colin Miller of The Mirror, he has suggested that Everton are considering a move for Manchester United defender Harry Maguire, and Manchester United are interested in signing Amadou Onana. We spoke about the Onana interest yesterday to Manchester United, and again, I'm not going to repeat myself and go over it, but my opinion is on the Onana stuff is very simple. As I think Everton would be silly to sell him at this point in the transfer window. Given we are 4 days away from the start of the Premier League season, I think it would leave us in a pretty perilous position to need to replace a player that has as much involvement in this side as Amadou Onana does, and I think he's looked good in pre-season. I think he's been impressive. I think he's been influential, and I think he's been somebody that I have been impressed with, and I will more than be more than happy. Sorry, pardon me. Be more than happy to give him another season in the Premier League, and I do think he will benefit from that, and I do think he will be much, much better and much more influential this season than what he was last season. I'll be perfectly honest. In terms of Harry Maguire, I just can't see this happening. Again, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't think Manchester United would want to loan Harry Maguire out when they have had bids that they have rejected for him of prices 30, 40 odd £million bids from West Ham United that they have rejected. So why would they reject that and then want to loan him out when they could just sell him anyway and get that money? And so therefore, on the back of that point, that I don't think they're going to loan him out, because they're very clearly not interested in that, because they're rejecting bids to sell him. Everton haven't got the money to go and spend 30, 40 million pounds on a centre-back at the moment. We haven't. Do I think we need another centre-back? I would have liked Everton to go out and buy another centre-back, because I can't shake the idea of Michael Keane being a starting centre-back. I can't. I know people will go, oh, Branthwaite. But if you were to ask me now, realistically, who do I think will start against Fulham at the weekend? I think it will be Michael Keane and James Tarkowski. And again, that's just the way I think Sean Dyche will do it. However, it isn't as important a position to be going out and spending 30, 40 million pounds on. And I think that's what we would have to spend at the very least to get Harry Maguire out of Manchester United, plus his wages that he would cost and all of the other fees that come with that. Yes, he would walk into our team, and yes, he would ultimately start for us every week, and yes, he would, again, you could say, well, it's worth the money then, but I just don't think we're that desperate for the centre-back to go out and spend that money. And I think if Everton were to bring in Harry Maguire, it would be on loan, and I just can't see that happening. I really, really can't. It's interesting that the links are still persistent, because I think this one is pretty straightforward. I don't think I can't see a world in which Harry Maguire signs for Everton this summer, but the links seem to continue sort of day in, day out, and that makes me think that there maybe is something a little bit more in it. Maybe it's the Onana stuff. Maybe Manchester United are heavily interested in Onana, and therefore are maybe trying to use Maguire as a sort of a part in that deal. But yeah, again, I just can't see this happening. And as I said yesterday, I think Everton would be stupid to sell Amadou Onana at this point in the transfer window as well. I do. So there you go. That is the latest Everton news. Don't forget to leave a like if you have enjoyed this video. Massive thank you to everybody for watching live. I really appreciate it. The Blues says, what makes you think we'll make a marquee signing, Cam? I'm not sure we've got the money. I don't necessarily mean a big money signing. I don't necessarily, by marquee, I don't mean going and spending 30, 40 million pounds on a player. I just mean that one player that we look at and we go, okay, he's the one that the plan is around this summer. That might be Patson Daka. That might be Wilfred Gnonto. If we signed Wilfred Gnonto for £20 million, he would be the marquee signing. And we've got that money to spend, clearly, because we were very close to bringing in El Bilal Toure for around about the same price, and that would have been the marquee signing. So that's what I mean by that. If you have enjoyed it, please hit the like button. It does only take a second if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. We will be back with another live stream over the next couple of days, so don't forget to look out for that one. But until then, massive thank you all for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. Please do leave a like if you have enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. We're close to 7,900 subscribers. We're aiming towards that 8K mark, so if you could hit that subscribe button, that would mean a huge amount to me. But big thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll see you later.